And we're live.
Well,
but there's only two of us.
What? One, two, two. Yeah, two.
Once again, hello, YouTube. We're going to get started here in just a minute. We want to say hello to everybody. But once again, you've got the two Chris's, not two Princes.
C squared.
C squared. We're going to talk about a really cool thing tonight, a legend. We've got an episode of iamLegend tonight. We're going to talk about the Endurance. It's a ship that was recently found. You're going to hear a whole lot about it. If you don't know anything about it, I suggest you stick around. Hey, Vance. Ryan says hello. He's sad he's missing you tonight. He wanted us to say hi and that he loves you. And
yeah, I think he wanted us to like virtually hug you.
Yep.
Kind of nuzzle a little bit. Almost kiss, but not just like awkwardly, like it's gonna happen, but not now. But not now.
We love
eventually it will happen.
We love our viewer that we have on a weekly basis. We hope there's more viewers up here all watching. Just heard somebody laughing. I think that was at my house. I'm not sure. If you're not a sports fan, I'm going to tell you real quick that my family is sports fans or whatever. And tonight the Arkansas Razorbacks beat the Gonzaga Bulldogs or whatever they are, Zags or whatever. And in the tournament, they made it to the Elite Eight. So way to go, Arkansas. I'm a Tennessee fan, but my wife is an Arkansas fan. So I have to cheer for them sometimes. So anyways, there may be some noises because they're still partying it up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And got school tomorrow, so that's great. All right. Well, let me just make sure everything looks good. It looks like we're good. And we've got everything recording already, so I'm going to jump into the intro and we'll get started. All right. I have to do that, right? All right.
I'll go up and down.
And 3. Hello and welcome to I Am Geek. This is episode 231. I'm Katrin and I'm joined by my good pal Chris.
Howdy.
Ryan is under the weather, so it's just Chris and I taking the helm again. We hope Ryan feels better soon.
We really do. We're not just saying that.
Yeah. So I hope you stick around. We're gonna have a fun time tonight. We've got an episode of iamLegend for you, and we've got a really cool show. But I want to tell you about next week. You want to be back? Ryan will be back next week, so you'll hear his golden voice. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say golden voice, but anyways, I did anyway.
Dulcet tones.
But he'll be back for a very special episode of I Am Disney when we're joined by Sarah and Steven of the YouTube channel Princess and Scoundrel. If you're not familiar with the Princess and Scoundrel, it's because it's a new YouTube channel. They just started in November, and their channel's dedicated to all things Disney and Star Wars. They love Disney and love Star Wars. Just like us, they recently took a trip on the Galactic Star Cruiser. I think they went with Dano, if you're familiar with the Dano channel, and so they're probably gonna tell us about that trip, which will be pretty cool. And so you'll want to come back next week, see us on the live stream on YouTube, or listen to the podcast, and it will be a lot of fun.
It's awesome because I am both a princess and a scoundrel in one, so it'll be fun to talk to both of them.
Yeah. That will be interesting. So, all right. Well, tonight we've got, again, another I Am Legend episode where we take deep dives into things that are legends. Maybe it's a cryptid or it's a something that happened in the past. So we're taking a trip to a faraway land. Not in space, but we're in a very cold area, a very cold continent actually, of Antarctica. So if you've been watching the news or a history geek, or you watch the History Channel, you'll know that that we're talking about the Endurance. There's a episode that's on the History Channel of History's Greatest Mysteries, and they did a documentary about a crew that went to go find this ship, the Endurance, and we wanted to talk about what actually happened with the Endurance, and then also what happened with this crew that went to find the Endurance. So I'd have a question for you, Chris. Had you heard
No,
of the Endurance prior to maybe like 3 years ago, or is this something you knew about in school?
I feel like it's something that like was in history books or something, but and probably like we spent like maybe one class like period, not even a whole class period on it.
Yeah.
It seems like something that was done. Um, uh, Recently, it kind of jogged back into my memory because we watched The Lost City of Z,
Okay.
which isn't about the Endurance, but it's about another like based off real life, true life drama about Percival Fawcett who went to the Amazon. An explorer that went with him at one point who was on one of the explorations to Antarctic with the captain of the Endurance, Shackleton, on one of his voyages. So it kind
Yeah.
of like stuff like that I watch, and then I tend to like look up Wikipedia
Yeah.
and like, oh, what really happened? What happened here? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't heard of it, and if I did, I'd forgotten about it, I guess. But everybody's
Hmm.
heard of the Titanic. You've heard of all these different ships that have gone down, and you don't hear much about this one. But we did watch a documentary about this recently, maybe 2 years ago, something like that. And my son is obsessed with ships, this kind of ship, any kind of ship wreckage, or any kind of ship, really. I mean, he's
Hmm.
recently started watching a lot about different cruise ships and wants to go on a cruise now.
Hmm.
But he really loves
Nice.
ships, and it was funny because I asked him one
Cruise.
time if he wanted to go on a cruise, a Disney cruise, and he said no, because he's watched so many of these ships go down. In fact, he plays a lot of video games on Roblox and just some other video games that he has, that where you sink ships. That's like the point of the game, and he's
Hmm.
obsessed with it. So
So
he
now he's into championships and relationships
all kinds of ships. That's right.
and all the ships. Okay.
And so yeah, it was interesting, and he really got me into it and watching these shows, watching these documentaries, and I've really enjoyed it. There's
Hmm.
a documentary on uh, Disney Plus about Titanic. We've watched that. Of course, the movie Titanic. We watched that.
Hmm.
But you don't see a whole lot about the Endurance. And somebody in the chat here on YouTube just said, it wasn't the Endurance part of the first national treasure? A good question. I've watched that movie many times, and there is a ship on there, and it very
No,
well
that seems
could.
right.
No, actually, the secret is on the Charlotte. So that was Charlotte, was it not? Charlotte
I'll
has the
have.
secret, or whatever the clue was. I think that's
Hmm.
a different ship. So they were on ice, and they did find it in ice there. So it's very similar, but I think and it could
Hmm.
be that it's supposed to be the same ship, and there's not everything is exactly one to one with that movie, and that story, I guess. But it
Wait,
could
National
be.
Treasure isn't a true
The
story?
National
Wait
Treasure
a
is not.
minute.
I don't think so. I don't think there's a map on the back to the Constitution, or
Uh,
Declaration of Independence, whatever. But maybe we'll find out one day. But it could be that it was that they took inspiration from the Endurance for the Charlotte.
they could have. They played loose and fast with history
Yeah,
in that movie,
yeah,
and so yeah,
fair.
I can see them kind of changing it up a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay. So, anyways, if you haven't heard about the Endurance, we're going to go into all the information about the ship that we know, or a lot of information we know about, not everything. And we're going to talk about this episode on history's greatest mysteries, and what exactly happened. So, in 1914, we'll just get into the meat of it here. In 1914, just
Mm.
2 years after the Titanic sank, if you know your dates there, I had to look that one up. But actually, I asked my son. I said, "When was it the Titanic? Was it 1912?" Yeah, yeah. Um, But there were a group of explorers led by Sir Ernest Shackleton that were trying to make it across the Antarctic. They were trying to make the first transcontinental, transantarctic expedition across the land, not necessarily just in the water. They were trying to get across the land, and that seems like an impossible task, right? Especially for that time.
Oh yeah.
You think
Mm-hmm.
you think about like it's the early 1900s. They don't have a lot of technology. Apparently, they have video cameras, and we'll talk about that later. And they have some really good ways to make ships too, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute.
Mhm.
But Shackleton wasn't your ordinary sea captain. He was an officer in the Royal Navy, and he led several expeditions to Antarctica. And the last of his, I got a kick out of this one. It was the last of his expeditions before this other one. It was called the Nimrod Expedition.
Nimrod.
Nimrod. And that's when they discovered the magnetic pole in the volcano known as Mount Erebus. And that's, again, in the Antarctica, or in the South Pole, I guess, really.
Mhm.
And then when he returned to England, he received several medals and was knighted Sir Ernest Shackleton. So he wasn't always Sir Ernest. He became Sir Ernest later, right?
That's one of the Ernest movies, I think, isn't it? Sir
Sir
Ernest.
Ernest. They should have made that.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
that would have
so.
been an interesting movie. So,
Sir Ernest Goes to Antarctica. I think
yeah.
that's what it was titled.
So, Chris, what do
Yeah.
we know about Antarctica? What's the first thing you think of when you think
Oh.
of Antarctica?
uh, penguins, really?
Penguins.
Yeah.
and seals, and it's really cold, right?
Yeah.
It's really cold. It doesn't make sense that they would want to do this. I don't. That's the one thing I keep coming back to is like, why? Why?
Because it's there.
Because it's there. Yeah, it's just like it's just like going to the moon or going to these other planets. Like, why? You're spending all this money and effort, and
Yeah.
most of us in our
Right.
lifetime will never see the benefit of these things, right?
Yeah, I would think there'd be easier ways to get ice in 1914.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not sure when the refrigerator was invented. So,
Well, no. I mean, you think about when was the third Back to the Future, when Doc had his machine that he built that could make tea or ice or whatever it was. When was that?
was that the 1800s?
But even then, it was like that wasn't a thing, right? He made it
Yeah.
then, so it was even maybe later. I don't know, but
Yeah.
But anyways, before we get into the story, I did want to talk about Antarctica a little bit more because I thought these were interesting facts. We've got 10 of them, so we won't draw this out too long. But number one, Antarctica holds the most of the world's fresh water, which is pretty amazing. I guess most of it is
Yeah.
frozen, or
I mean, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. There's not a lot of things there to poo in it,
that's right.
or to dirty it up in any way.
But it's interesting that it's fresh water though, right? It's not ocean
Yeah, it's
water,
not salt.
right?
Yeah, it's not
It's not
salt
salt water.
water. Which I mean, I guess makes sense because I think with salt, it takes a lot. It's harder to freeze.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
So that would make sense.
Yeah. So it covers an incredible 14 million kilometers of the mountain ranges and the ice, I should say, and valleys and plateaus. It leaves only 1% of Antarctica permanently ice-free. Some areas are ice-free in the summer, including many of the areas we visit on the Antarctic Peninsula and whatever. And at its deepest, the Antarctica's ice is 4.5 kilometers or 2.7 miles thick. That's half the height of Mount Everest. That's crazy. And hopefully, that's the one of the things that's right now is everything's melting up there, right? It's warmer than it's been in millions of years, and if all of it melted, then they say that all of the world's sea levels would rise about 200 feet, which is crazy.
Which, I mean, we still have Kevin Costner, so we'll be okay.
I know, that's what I keep thinking of is Waterworld every time somebody mentions that happening. But what I did, one of the things I didn't know is that Antarctica is actually a desert. It's like, how in the world can it be a desert if it's all water? But
yeah, it's weird.
But what they're talking about is it's actually just really dry. The air is just really dry there, and it actually doesn't. But it doesn't receive much precipitation. It's just really cold, and ice just hasn't melted,
the water
or
that's there
there's
freezes.
no rain. There's
Yeah.
no way for the, I guess, the evaporation to happen. I don't know. I don't want to get too scientific. I don't know, but I mean, they do get
Science.
sun. They do get sun for long periods of time, but I guess it just doesn't get warm enough. So, but it used to be warm as Melbourne, Australia, which I thought was another thing that was interesting. But that was like 40 or 50 million years ago, because they found these fossils and other things that made them believe that was the case. So pretty cool. The Antarctic Peninsula is one of the most rapidly warming areas on Earth. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's the coldest. So, I mean, any little bit of warmth, I would think that would actually be pretty rapid
Yeah.
compared to other. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. There's no Antarctic time zone, which is weird.
There's no clocks down there,
I
so I don't think.
guess not. I don't.
Yeah. They
Whatever.
all freeze.
They
It doesn't matter.
freeze. But they do have 6 months of constant daylight in the summer and 6 months of darkness in winter.
Oof.
That would just be really weird. But
Yeah.
thinking about this expedition, they used that to their advantage, right? In the summer,
That is true.
they were able to travel longer, maybe, and with the sun
And
on them,
with the sun out, I mean, that helps to kind of help break up the ice, I guess, a little bit better, because I mean, no sun,
Yeah.
no heat whatsoever, so I would think things would be colder, so probably harder to move around.
Yeah, it's
So
probably
that
a
makes sense.
little more bearable, to go
Yeah.
in the sun time. The summertime.
The sun time.
And then number 6, every way is north. Whenever you're on the South Pole,
Mhm.
everywhere you look, every direction is north. It's really weird, though.
That makes sense.
I mean, it does, but it's like if you look to the left, it's north. I don't know. That's just weird. But
I thought north was up.
I know
I guess.
exactly. It's always up, right?
Yeah.
Antarctica has active volcanoes. That seems
Ooh.
terrifying if it's like ice flying out, or with lava.
Fire and ice.
Fire and ice.
It's just Game of Thrones up there.
Yeah.
You're down there.
It'd be really cool seeing it, because it would, that means it's probably freezing as soon as it hits, and it's making all these cool designs. But I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool to
Yeah.
see.
There is a subglacial lake that flows blood red.
Oh,
That's really weird.
okay.
And it's because of all the salt and oxidized iron in this one lake. And then when the oxygen comes in contact with that iron, it makes this red color, and they call it blood falls.
So inhospitable cold, volcanoes, and blood red
Sounds like the end of the world.
lake. Yeah, I want to go there.
Yeah.
Take a cruise.
This one's kind of interesting. Antarctica has its own treaty. Okay. It's kind of weird, but it basically it's one of the things it does is it has their guidelines for fishing and sealing, and their mineral exploration and mining and all of that. So it's just the way they do things there. I guess I don't really get that. But anyways, number 10, diamond dust floats in the air, and this is the last one. We'll move on. But it's not really diamonds, right? It's just ice that's flying in the air, ice fog, and the way when the sun's shining on it, it makes it look like diamonds are floating. So that would be pretty cool to see, I think.
That's cool. Yeah.
This is funny. It says diamond dust is also responsible for beautiful optical phenomena like sundogs, halos, and light pillars.
Sundogs.
I don't know what that is.
Sundog?
Sundogs. So, anyways, some important facts to know about Antarctica. The main one being it's really cold there, and it's
So
a lot
cold.
of ice. For me, that was pretty big. And so Shackleton and his crew in 1914, they took their journey, and again they wanted to cross the Antarctic. I want to say tundra, but the land, I guess. And it seems like an impossible task. I mean, everybody had to be saying, this. Why are you doing this? This is impossible. Nobody else wanted to do it. He'd been out there several times, like we said. But the way they made their ship, and it's a wooden ship.
Yeah.
Thinking about that, you're like, it just seems like everything's stacked against them, right? Because it's a wooden ship. It's snow. It's cold. It's But they made it in a way that on the documentary they were saying it was built very well. Like they had the plans, which is interesting. and it was built really well. The wood on there was so tough because it was green that it was hard to put a nail through it.
Yeah, it is like this special kind of wood that I guess they would use for ships like
Yeah,
this, that like it could just take punishment over and
yeah,
over again and not really take any damage. So yeah, it's like steel almost. It's like how strong the wood is.
yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
Crazy, and you had to make the point of it, or the stern is at the front or the bow. Sorry, the bow is the front, right? They had to make
Sure.
it kind of at a point so that they could break through the ice, and
Hmm.
it worked for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. I also found it interesting that it's not necessarily they said this mostly with the newer ships that they take,
Mhm,
but I guess it is a strategy is you're not really necessarily ramming the ice
right,
to break it. It's more you're riding up on the ice and
putting
using the
pressure.
weight
Yeah,
of the ship to come down on it to break it apart and let it like float off. I thought that was kind of cool.
yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. They knew what they were doing. He had been there several times. He knew what he was getting into. The crew knew what they were getting into. But it in the end it became too much, and we'll talk about what happened there. But even the ship that found the wreckage, the Augulus
Mhm.
2, Agulus, that's what it was, Agulus 2,
Yeah.
their equipment failed and they got stuck at one point, right? So
Yeah. They had a dense fog that came around
mhm,
them, so they couldn't necessarily see to move forward. So they had to kind of slow down, which let the ice around them to kind of to start to ice up more. Like all the water started to ice up around it, so they couldn't move.
yeah,
And they did. So what the Endurance did when that was happening was they had the crew members like run back and forth across
yeah,
the boat about the ship to rock it to where it would like hit the ice and break it up a little bit,
yep,
which I guess helped a little bit, but again, not as much
not
as
as
they
much,
hoped.
yeah,
Yeah, but the newer ship, instead of people just running back and forth, they had this giant crane
yeah,
that lifted up this big gas tank
right,
and just like swirled it all the way, like it went like way far
right, yeah,
off the ship deck and moved it back and forth, and it rocked the ship enough to break it up
right,
so it could move again.
yeah.
That was pretty
That
fun to
was
watch.
crazy. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because there was one time I was in Arkansas at my in-laws' place where they have uh, uh, hunting land, and it's in timber and there's water, and the canal had frozen, and there was probably half an inch or a quarter inch maybe. It wasn't super thick.
Mm.
That was the canal was frozen, right? So we took a boat and tried to break through, just like what we're describing here. And I ended up standing with one foot on each side of the boat and rocking side to side. And we made it through. I mean, my father in law had a pole, and he was kind of pushing and breaking through. And then I'm sitting here rocking this thing, and I never fell. I don't know how I didn't fall.
Wow.
As I was, I was like, I just have to do this, because I was thinking there's no way I'm going to do this, but I had to do it because it was like my father-in-law's there, and I can't just say no, I'm not going to do this, and you do it. So
Gotta step up for the
that's
father-in-law.
right. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, that it's interesting how they made it through there, how they got through there. But unfortunately, the Endurance wasn't so lucky. They weren't able to break through there in January of 1915. So they'd been going since I can't remember what date. And was it June? Yeah, it was June. No, that's not right. Mm, Sometime in 1914, they set off, right. But in
Hmm.
1915, in January, they got stuck. The temperatures had dropped to like below 20, I think, something like that,
Oof. Yeah.
or 20 below. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. 20
Mhm.
below. So the ice,
Below 20 is
the
0. Like,
the water that was there would just refreeze. So they were breaking through, but then they
yeah.
they started slowing down because you're not going fast anyways, right? And
Hmm.
they just kind of got trapped in the ice. And
Yeah.
so they got out
Crazy.
and tried to break the ice, and they worked for 10 months.
Yeah, just like with chisels
Yeah.
and things like just trying to chip away and break it, and it just refreeze.
Yeah. I couldn't believe that it was 10 months. I mean, just the length of time that they were
Yeah.
actually out, and we'll get into some of that too, but they tried to get through and break the ice, but they finally had to abandon the ship in October of 1915. And in that process of them trying to break through it, the boat or the ship actually moved with the ice about 550 miles with the ice and wind. It was, um,
Yeah.
to where it actually sunk. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that was crazy because,
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking like, well, they're stuck there,
Right.
the ice, it's frozen over, it's just gonna sink right there. But yeah, no, they're not really on land because it's not land, it's they're still on the water.
Yeah.
So there's still like the currents are still moving underneath them,
Right.
and it caused them to do almost like this clockwise, just circular motion
Yeah. It,
to where it just shifted around to this other place.
yeah. If you look at the map, I'll put some links in the show description, but the the distance they traveled and from where they got stuck and where they ended up, it's crazy. Again, it's 550 miles. It's a long ways away, right?
Mhm.
And it's just the whole length of the trip just amazes me. But so they said, okay, we can't do this anymore. This it's starting to make all these noises that sounds like trees breaking, and it's all this cracking, creaking, and all this.
Mhm.
They get off the boat. They get all of their lifeboats off. They get their rations. They get their dogs. Their 49 dogs and 28
Yeah.
men. So everybody's still alive and going at this point. But they get
Mhm.
everything off and they put everything in the boats that they can, and they just watch the boat go down. And that's got to be pretty terrifying, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah, that's wild.
you feel like that's your last hope in some ways,
Yeah, it's
right?
just like that's your home
Yeah,
sinking into the water.
but it just goes down, and we haven't really even mentioned too much, but they a lot of this is filmed, right?
I know. I thought that was crazy.
Yeah. You don't think about a lot of things being filmed in that time, or I don't, and
Mhm.
especially something portable like that. You think of like home
Yeah.
videos or whatever. It's what this felt like, and I mean, I guess they're
Mhm.
running the crank to do
Yeah,
this or
it's
whatever.
probably got a crank to it, or yeah, it's going
Yeah,
through. Uh, but yeah, no, I thought because they were showing some pictures, I thought, oh, okay, they got a camera, and
yeah,
then on the special that we watched on history, and then they started showing footage. I was like, are they recreating this?
right, yeah,
Like this looks pretty good, like for recreation.
yeah,
And my wife was like, no, there, this is actually filmed. I was like, oh, it is, isn't it? Like that's kind of nuts.
yeah. It was crazy. So they get out. Shackleton orders them to march 200 miles, or that's their goal is to get 200 miles
Mhm.
across the ice, pull in the lifeboats, pull full of supplies. And this wasn't the dogs; it was the men. They were, it shows you see pictures and videos of the men with ropes on them, and they're pulling these boats full of stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
It just seems ridiculous. That you're in the Arctic or the Antarctic, I should say, and it's you're trying to go over 200 miles. Like I can't imagine going like 10 miles walking.
Yeah,
It's
and it's not like they're going to like, we just got to make it to this
yeah,
city over the hill. Like, no, they're just
no.
going to the ocean where they're going to have more problems.
Yeah, they think they know where they are. I mean, they kind of do. They know where
Mhm.
they are, and they know where these whaling islands are, these towns are, and they hope
Mhm.
they can get there, right? And they're having to go through all these big chunks of ice and snow and things that are in their way, and
Yeah,
um,
because it's not
it wasn't all
flat.
flat.
Because yeah, the ice, like it's all again, it's just floating on the water,
Yeah,
so it's moving and hitting against each other and causing these like big rifts that like shoot
yeah,
upwards. So they're having to go over those ice like kind of mountains almost that form out of
it's
nowhere.
crazy. So they can only cover about 9 miles in a week. It's just like I can imagine going
Gosh.
9 miles in a day, I guess, if I really had to, but that took them a week to do. So there's no way that they were going to make the
It might take
200
me a
miles,
week.
right? I don't know.
Mhm.
But they finally made it to Elephant Island. Um, but I guess before they got there, um, that's right. I'm sorry, I skipped a part. So before they got there, the ice started to break apart, right? They're pulling on this
Mhm.
ice. They're on this ice. It's not land, it's ice, right? And
Yeah.
they have to throw everything in the boats real quick because they realize that they're about to lose their ground, right? And
Yeah.
and But you'd also think that would be a little bit easier, right? If you're in the water, then maybe you could
Mhm.
row your way to somewhere and you're at least not walking, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but it makes it even more difficult. They're having to go over these huge waves and the wind, and it just, I'm sure it was unbearable. But they
Hmm.
finally made it to Elephant Island, which was really wasn't an ideal place to be because there's nothing there.
No.
It's just cold and yeah, nothing there. No whaling towns to see there. So they're starting to run out of food at this point. There's seals and penguins that come up, um,
Yeah.
and then they have to they have to eat their dogs.
Yeah, that was so
That
sad.
was really sad. They,
Because I mean, they showed film of the
yeah,
dogs, and for the most part, the dogs look like they're having a good time
yes.
in the bits of film that they
Well,
showed, and
and
they're just like, we're just running along, pulling our masters. This is great.
well, and they said that
Uh,
was their friends. I mean, that was like the
yeah.
bright thing in the whole journey, like what kept them going, and one of the things that kept them going and kept them happy was having these
Hmm.
dogs, 49 dogs with.
Yeah.
So they had to eat,
Oh,
unfortunately. One of the questions I
sad.
had was like, did they eat anything else? Right, and they ate the seals and the penguins, and did they eat people?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
fortunately, they didn't get to that point. Right,
Yeah, that's good.
they made a pact though. They said if anybody dies, we're gonna eat them. And, and because
All
they had to
right, guys, I
survive.
die. You can eat me.
They
It's fine.
they had to survive. I mean, there was, you have to do what you have to do, and who's there to tell you it's wrong, right? It's whatever it takes.
Well, I mean, it's desperation.
Yeah,
Desperation kicks in. It's the fight or flight instinct, and you're just like, I gotta survive.
yeah,
To do that, I gotta eat. And I mean, Frank's dead,
yeah.
so
Guess I
he's
better
not
eat
gonna care.
them. So at at this point, they know there's an island to the north, I guess, or it's all north, right? I don't.
Yeah,
it's
everything's north
it's
there.
over there. They know there's an
Yeah,
island. It's not really close, but it's their best shot. There's a whaling town there, and
yeah, northwest maybe.
somewhere, yeah, it's somewhere. This is 507 days into the expedition, and that's from 1914 to now, right? And
Yeah.
which is the little over a year, right? It's not quite 2 years yet.
Mhm.
I can count. Yep, I can count. Um, so they Shackleton takes five of his men, the five of his strongest men, and they get the largest lifeboat to go get help. And they traveled 800 miles through rough waters to get to South Georgia Island, and they got there on day 521. So it took them almost 20 days to get in a in a lifeboat to get to this island.
Yeah, yeah, that's nuts.
It's crazy. So even then they got to the island, but then they had to travel 30 more miles, and it
Yeah.
took them 3 days. But they found people, and
Mhm.
nobody could believe the story. It's like, what are you thinking? Like, why did you do this?
You went there on purpose,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. Nobody does that. Just have some whale blubber. but
Keep you warm.
but they talked some people into it, and they took three different attempts in three different boats to try to get back to Elephant Island
And
um to get it to rescue his crew. At this point, he doesn't know if they're alive or dead. They couldn't talk on
yeah,
cell phones or anything.
to me, I mean, it's like it speaks like volumes to Shackleton.
Yeah,
Like he could have like just got to the whaling town and be like, okay, like I am done.
I'm so
Can
tired.
like they're that way. Can you guys just go get them? But he went back with them. Like he
Yeah,
actually like went back for his crew. Like he set sail on a little raft. They didn't know if they even make it to that island.
yeah.
Got there, 30 miles walking over there. Gets them like, hey, we gotta go back and get them.
It was like
So let's turn around.
three different. The boats were from three, or the boats and crews were from three different countries, and it's wild that there were all these different people there, and were willing to help too.
Hmm.
But they had to turn around, I guess, the two first times, but 2 first attempts. But on day 635, so remember he got to South Georgia Island on day 521, but on day 635 he gets in, and this is in 1916 at this point. So they originally left in 1914. You know, on the original journey. This is 1916, so 2 years from then, almost 2 years. They are. He finally gets back to Elephant Island and finds that his entire crew, all 22 that were remained at this island, were still alive.
Yeah, and in the documentary they were saying like as they were approaching before they even got to the island, he like stood up and started like trying to count the heads.
There's 1, there's 2,
And
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 22.
Yes, we did it. We didn't do nothing. But I mean that's the thing is like they respected him more than anybody else. You know, they respected him a ton. They called him the boss. They followed him, and it kept them alive. I mean, this guy was had all these medals. He'd done all these things. They knew that if they could follow him, and I mean that was their only shot. I mean, what else are you going to do? But at the same time, it's like they kept calling. You know, they called him the boss. You know, whatever the boss says. You know, and man, can you imagine them? They're like, you know, that long a time, over 100 days, that they're just sitting there. It's like, oh, is that him? Nope, it's just a wave. You know?
Yeah. Like, what do you want to do today? Who wants to build a snowman?
Yeah. And again, this whole time they're eating seals and penguins, right? Because they've probably, you know, sadly gone through all the dogs. I hate that.
Yeah. Happy Feet was a much different movie with them in it.
They had happy feet when they saw penguins, probably. But anyway,
their heart songs just came out and he showed up.
So it's amazing. I mean, again, if you look at the map of how far they traveled and to go all the way up to this other island where these whalers are and where they tried to get to, I mean, it's just unreal. I can't wrap my head around how they did this, how they were able to survive in the 1900s, in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
I mean, just thinking about all the technologies and skills that we have today and what they didn't have, you know, and I just can't wrap my head. And just for the simple fact that the next crew that actually did this actually made it all the way across. It wasn't until like 1958, I think, when there was a crew that made it across, and they had aerial reconnaissance. You know, there was like a helicopter or something, I'm sure, and they had snowmobiles and all these things, you know, to help them. And they made it across the Antarctic. Yay. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it gets cold and snows here in Texas, and I'm like, I'm not going outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have like nice like modern day jackets that are supposed to keep you like super warm now. They have like,
I don't know what they had.
I mean, fleece.
Yeah, they had. I'm sure it was animal fur of some sort, and probably. I mean, well, yeah, just animal fur. You know, I mean, maybe there's blubber or something that's supposed to be super warm. I don't know what you do with it, but
just roll around it.
I don't know, but so anyways, back to the documentary. So the documentary it followed the Agulhas 2. Agulhas, I keep saying it wrong. Agulhas 2, and it was a ship that was built for this type of weather and conditions. It came from Africa, I think, and Cape Town or something. But I thought it was pretty interesting that its engines allowed it to move at a blistering 7 miles per hour, cutting through 3 meters of ice. So that's what, 9 feet, if my math is correct, right? Of ice, 9 feet of thick ice that it's breaking through. And they get stuck. Like this ship it's got so much more technology and so much more going for it that they even got stuck.
Can't fight Mother Nature.
You can't fight Mother Nature. In fact, so the reason they took the trip when they did, and this was 3 years ago when they did the first trip, and then when they had the first, I guess, documentary about this that I saw. But and I just lost my train of thought. But they took this journey and they ended up getting stuck at one point, and they have this little AUV or submarine that would go down and could explore. They were able to find where they thought the wreckage would be about, what did they say, 1,200 miles away. They had a way of, or was it that right? That doesn't sound right, but from a far distance, they were able to determine it's
Yeah.
over there, you know. So they
Yeah.
knew where they were going. They went to this part, and there's this part in the ocean floor that just goes down really deep. And they said that's where it's going to
Yeah.
be. It goes down about 10,000 feet. You know, it's got to be there. You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. They had a lot of problems
they did.
with their uh, mechanical bits, like that. Yeah, the AUV thing, that was the torpedo one, right? They
Right.
it like shot out like out the back of it, like, drop the kid off at the pool,
Yeah.
and that one, like, there's no tether to this thing. It's just going out, and it's supposed to come back,
Yeah.
and
And
it
it
didn't
doesn't.
come back.
Did it run out of battery, or just the pressure got to it and it
I,
quit or something? I
I
don't
don't know. That
remember.
was a little confusing. Exactly what happened. They said it only had a certain amount of battery life,
Yeah.
and before that happened, though, they lost contact with it,
Mm-hmm.
and it could have been the cold, it could have been the depth, or whatever. So they had another kind of rover thing that they were going to be using to actually explore the wreckage when they found it.
Right.
And so they pinpointed where the AV was, and they sent this thing down to get it. And they have video of trying to like grasp it
Yeah.
with like this like hook thing underwater, and it
Yeah.
keeps missing. They finally get it, and they get it back up to the ship, only to find out the thing that they're supposed to use to explore the wreckage, the housing, this like metal housing that contains basically the brains of this thing,
Yeah.
just imploded from the pressure
Wow.
of
That's
being down
crazy.
that deep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a thick metal thing if you watch it,
Yep.
and it's just like it just crumpled like it was paper.
Yeah.
Like,
So
and so they couldn't use that
you don't want to go
again.
down that far.
No, you would not survive. Yeah, I mean, even if you get past all the cold, the pressure will
Right.
kill you.
Yeah. So needless to say, we won't ever have trips down to see it, probably, at least in our lifetime.
No, no, I don't think
I think it would
so.
be really cool to see it though. Because
Yeah, I mean,
so at this point, again, in the documentary, they had to give up. They had to turn back because they're like, okay, our sub isn't working. We need this thing to be able to see everything. So to do the exploration. So this is like 3 years ago. And then 3 years later, which it was earlier this month, they went back out there, and this is March of 2022. They went back out, and they knew where they were going this time. They went straight towards it, and they found it. And
yeah,
it's so funny in the documentary because it was like it's all about what happened 3 years ago, and then at the very end, for 2 minutes, they say they found it.
yeah,
No pictures.
yeah, no pictures, no footage. I I have a feel. I don't know if this is exactly what happened. So I feel like history kind of helped fund
Hmm.
the one 3 years ago with the film crew and stuff.
Right.
And so they had all that footage for that one, but they didn't for the second time they went when
Yeah,
they
you're
actually
probably
found
right.
it. And so they legally didn't have any right to the footage to show it. More than likely, another company did. I think BBC News, I think they have the
I think
footage
so.
if you
Yeah,
want to watch it. So maybe them or another, they had funding from other people for this second one.
for sure.
Because even the rover thing that they put in the water to go down looked completely different
Yeah, yeah.
than the first one.
So the documentary again, it just ends, and they're like they did it,
Yeah.
and it's over. And then, so what you have to do is you go and search Shackleton's endurance and found or something like that, and you can find all these videos, and it's fascinating because they found
Mhm.
the ship in almost perfect condition. Like it looks like. I mean, when you see the videos of it going down, because again, you can see the footage that they had, and it looks all crumpled, right? But it's all
Mhm.
still together because it's all held together by ropes. Because basically the masts and the things that hold the sails up, so the mast and all that, those were all crumpled, but they were all still together with the ropes, right? But it went down, and all of that pressure slowed it down, I'm sure, so that it just kind of
Yeah.
stayed together. And um,
Yeah, it did. I think they said like the front of it, you can see where it had hit the bottom,
Mhm.
and so it kind of crumpled there a little bit. But like for the most part, yeah, it looked pretty much like the last video of it
Yeah,
that they saw.
which is it's crazy. And there, there's not a
Yeah,
lot of bacteria and animals that eat wood in the
yeah, there's
ocean,
like some
right?
kind of sea worm or something that they talked
They
about.
talked about a sea
That,
worm, the mollusk or whatever that
yeah,
eats wood, the what they call it, a shipworm or something like that.
yeah, like a shipwreck. It just eats through everything and
But it,
anything, and just quickly.
yeah, but it's too cold and there's too much pressure there,
Yeah.
right? so
Hmm.
so they that's why it didn't get destroyed. That's why it's still like that.
Hmm.
Um, but it's pretty remarkable to see that footage. It reminds me of when they found the Titanic. Those videos, and I'm hoping there's more
Hmm.
footage because what I've seen, you can kind of see some things, and maybe there's not a whole lot because it is so deep and there is so much pressure. But they
Hmm.
talked about seeing crockery and and clothing and things
Yeah,
in
like
there.
boots,
Yeah,
and you could see into the porthole where the captain's like quarters were.
yeah,
And of course, the back of the ship with the word endurance was still there with like a big star under it. Looked
yeah,
like perfect.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
and that the name of that ship is just perfect for this, right? It
yeah,
endured,
it
and that crew endured all of this,
is. Mhm.
Um, so it's just amazing. I mean, I can't imagine A, wanting to do something like that, and B, making it across,
Yeah.
surviving all that they went through.
Hmm.
Um, so that's the story of the Endurance. Again, they found it recently. So one of the questions I had for you is, do you think it's time for a movie now that more people need to hear this story?
Oh yeah, I'm sure that especially now that they found it and that it's been all over TV, history made a documentary of it. I'm sure movie studios are just
Oh, yeah.
scrambling to get the rights
Yeah.
for this. Yeah.
I did a Google just to make sure that there wasn't a movie already, and there is something that comes up on IMDb, but it's still just a documentary.
Hmm.
Shackleton's Endurance, I think is what it's called. But um, and they've got tons of footage. I mean, it's just waiting to be written, right? The movie and to be
Oh
filmed,
yeah.
really. And they it seems like it should have already been done at this point, but I think it's just going to make that all happen. Like you said, movie makers are just chomping at the bit to get this done because
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
there's some color footage of what that ship looks like, right? And that helps a
Hmm.
ton. That's because you think about with Titanic, and if you watch the documentary on the Titanic, they actually saw a lot of it. I guess did they see it before though, or after the movie? Can't remember with that one. They mentioned it in that particular documentary because
It
it
was
was with
around
James
this
Cameron.
time. Yeah.
But I was thinking actually they saw it later because they found out that there were some things that were not correct later on. But anyways, it gives
Hmm.
them a lot of things to think about and to do. Um, but speaking of that film footage, I mean that I don't know what kind of camera would be able to sustain all that. We talked about it earlier being probably just like a wind up camera. It'd have to be, but
Hmm.
that was just amazing that was still in good shape and um, yeah, I don't know. That is just really interesting. I
Hmm.
I was excited to do this deep dive into it.
Hmm.
So I I was really interested and almost did a quiz about other famous sunken ships, but it's like none
Oh.
of us would have known any of these. So I was like, we'll just skip that.
Well, that could have been even
But
more
but
fun.
it's really interesting to see those kind of things,
Hmm.
and there's all kinds of shows like that on history and um, whatever other channels there are that do that nowadays. It's like I was gonna say TLC or something like that, but I don't know that they do that kind of stuff anymore. But whatever channel Destination Truth is on, I bet they
Yeah,
which
Discovery.
is it Discovery? Okay, so that stuff is always
Yeah.
interesting to me.
You wrote a question down here. I'm just going to throw it in your
Oh
face.
gosh.
Who do you think should play
Oh yeah.
Shackleton in the movie?
Who should play Shackleton? I don't know, man. I'm trying to think. Let me look. I've got a picture of what he looks like. See if we can
Mm-hmm.
figure out a good match for him.
Yeah, I looked him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, as well.
Um.
Right,
Oh.
for our viewers
Yeah.
watching, that would be him.
Man, I don't know. I'm terrible at this. I meant to ask you that because I'm not good with actor names and um.
so, my few thoughts.
Mhm.
Um, First, I just thought just like before I saw the picture, I was like, just manly
Yeah.
man. Like who would be a manly man that could take this on or whatever? And I thought John Hamm
Okay. Yeah.
or Madman
Yeah.
because he just seems like
Yeah.
he could survive the Antarctic. Um, but then like looking at him a little bit, I was like, oh, maybe Ewan McGregor.
Yeah. Hugh McGregor.
I could pull that off, or possibly. I gotta look this guy up because I don't
Well,
remember his name.
while you're doing that, he kind of has some bulgy kind of eyes, and he reminds me of and I can't think of his name. I'm gonna get hate email for this, but the Green Goblin on Spider-Man. What is his?
Oh, William
William Dafoe.
Dafoe.
Yeah.
I kind of thought William Dafoe at first a little bit.
Yeah.
If it but he's
He's too
older
old.
now.
That was my thought
I
too.
think he might be a little too
Yeah.
old.
And then I thought
But
Robert Redford too, but he's too old. So I don't know.
I think he played Scarecrow of Batman Begins, Cillian Murphy.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's a good kind of likeness to him. Be a good actor for
Yeah.
him.
There's some other pictures on that article that you were looking at there that he's got a beard and he's got a hat and he looks a bit different than he did in that other photo of him. But
Yeah.
in 1900. But yeah,
Yeah, put a beard on him. He's a completely different person.
they so he died. Let me see if I can find that real quick. His final years. He returned to England in 1917 and found out that the war he heard about just before leaving had grown into the First World War. And I mean, they missed part of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he organized another. And so in 1919, we even talked about this. So he organized another expedition to the Antarctic just a few years later after getting back. Apparently, he didn't have enough of it. But he ended up on South Georgia Island again. But he didn't. They didn't make it. They had to turn around, I guess. But he died at the age of 47, which really he wasn't that old. I guess that's I'm 44. It's not very old.
Yeah.
But he died in 1922 on January 5th. But that's pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
They called him the boss, but he's definitely someone to look up to and to aspire to be like, just to not give up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get all cheesy on us, but
Oh yeah. Oh, the gumption.
yeah,
The gumption.
pretty interesting. And then, like I said, there was the next group to actually make it across was in 1958, and then the next group after that was in 1981. So not many people have been able to do it. So.
I wouldn't think a lot of people would want to specifically, but yeah.
I don't get the point. But I'm sure. I mean, the thing is, if you can get out to these remote places like this and really research and look at how deep the ice is and figure out how, did it melt, did it refreeze, did it all do this, and you can find these fossils and different things. It's pretty interesting, and you can kind of learn about what could happen in the future. But and I think that's part of it. And I said earlier, it's like, why do people go to the moon? Why do they go to Mars? Well, some of it is like, what if this Earth we're on is inhabitable or whatever, uninhabitable? I can't say it. What if we have to leave? Are these other places any good? And so I mean that there's some value to that, but some of it I feel like it's just like, why not? Let's just go. Let's spend all this money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they spent a lot of money to do this. Yeah. I forget how much it was, but it's in the millions.
I'm sure. And that's crazy because they're not doing it necessarily for science to look at the ice and all this stuff. They were looking for this ship because
the ship.
Nobody else had found it.
Yeah.
Okay. And the thing is, it's a monument now that nobody can touch it. Nobody can bring anything up. You can't go snooping around in it. No, you couldn't anyways because it's so deep. But it's a monument, and I'm sure there will be other expeditions and people will get more footage of it. because again,
Mm-hmm.
you can look and not touch it, but you just got to have the right technology and the right kind of equipment to get down that deep.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting down the road, like because they keep talking about how everything's melting, all whatever. We're not going to get political or anything like that here, but if it does, what if it did melt? Right? It would be super interesting to know if that would of course the sea level would rise, so it's not going to get any shallower.
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
what if it like floated up? And that'd be interesting. We'll never see
Mm-hmm.
that, but I'd love to see more inside of it, just to see that. It's just
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. So,
Yes.
all right. Well, that's all of our show we have today. We want to thank you for listening to episode 231. And if you are on social media, you can find us on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, and Facebook. Just look for iamGEEKshow. You can also join our Facebook group, which is iamGEEK, iamGroup. If you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, you can listen to this and all of our other episodes wherever you listen to podcasts, and whether that be Apple, Google, or Stitcher, or Spotify, or Amazon, wherever. And if you can't remember any of this that I've just said, then you can go to iamGEEKshow.com and you can find links to that, plus links to previous shows and to all of our different social media. And if you are watching the Facebook or YouTube, then you can listen to us again on any of those places. But be sure to come back next week and listen to the episode or see us online when we are with I just forgot their name. Wow. We have another I Am Disney episode with Sarah and Steven of The Princess and Scoundrel. And we'll talk Disney and Star Wars. So we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Stop the recording. Awesome. There we go. We did it.
Are we still on?
We're still on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, hi. If this information and stuff did interest you, I would recommend The Lost City of Z.
Okay. Yeah.
Are we still
We're still on. I was just saying I should have let you say that on the show.
Oh, no, you're fine. No, this is just for you.
Oh, good.
This is for you. Yeah, I would recommend The Lost City of Z. It's currently on Amazon Prime if you have that.
Cool.
And want to watch it. It stars Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy, I believe. Robert Pattinson is in it, along with a young Tom Holland.
Wow, how about that?
One of his first kind of big movies that he was in. But it's just really interesting. Apparently, the director of the Batman, when he saw this movie, he's like, "That's my Batman. Okay. I need him as Batman." I don't know why. After watching the movie, I'm not sure exactly. It's just other than like, he acts good.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to use him. He's a good actor. But it is a nice movie, and not to spoil anything, but it is a mystery exactly kind of what happened to this real life person, and they kind of explore that a little bit, but they don't say like this is what happened, which is kind of nice. They kind of still leave it kind of a mystery. So it plays out well.
Very cool. I would have thought it was about zombies.
You would think
everything is about zombies, especially if it has the letter Z.
Yeah, I know, and I think World War Z typically you think of, which starred Brad Pitt, and this is produced by Brad Pitt, so I think it kind of mixed people up.
I'm sure, yeah.
When it came out,
another one.
Really? I'm done with these. But no, the Lost City of Z or Z, which is what
I think I
the
remember
archaeologist named it.
That, and I think I remember somebody saying it wasn't about zombies. So.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Anything else going on? Talk about.
Well, next week Moon Knight's coming up, so be watching out for that.
Be on.
Yeah.
And then we could probably talk about that because it'll be at Disney. which it's
Mhm.
technically a Marvel, so we can probably wait for that. We can give our
Yeah.
first reactions to it.
Yeah,
Initial
your
reaction.
first reaction. And then Turning Red came out,
Yeah.
the new Pixar movie, which we watched it. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought
Excellent.
it was fun. I think was it Luca
Yeah.
was the last
I think
Pixar
so. Yeah.
movie. I think I liked that one better,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I personally like this better than Encanto.
Okay.
That that might be
It is
controversial.
controversial. We don't talk about red things,
Canto.
or I don't know.
Um, but that could just be me. I'm not a big musical fan, and Canto was very
Yeah.
musical, like Broadway musical specifically. Um, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was fun. Not necessarily for the younger kids,
Yeah. Which is weird to me, but
because I mean Pixar is seeming to like kind of skew a little older
yeah.
necessarily than Disney animations, especially recently.
Yeah.
But but it's still good. It was a fun. It was kind of a fun watch, and the the style of it's really nice. The animation of it's really nice. So I'd recommend.
Get out. We haven't really. We finished watching, or we're caught up, I guess, to on Resident Alien. That's currently a show that's currently on, right?
We are not caught up on that.
Um,
We're a couple episodes
it
behind.
the last episode that came on, I was like, this is gonna be like the last episode, the way it ended. And then we realized, oh, it's on right now, because it was like, now watch season episode 1. I was like, what? No. But it's I've really liked that show. Liked watching it. But
Mhm.
we started playing a new game. It has nothing to do with that. But it's have you ever heard of Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza?
Uh, no, but sounds delicious.
So it's a card game, and you have the stack of cards. You deal out all the cards, and nobody can look at their cards. And when you flip over the card, you have to say taco, and the next person says cat, and the next person says goat. Next person cheese pizza. And you keep going. And if when you lay down the card, if it's the card that you say, so if you say taco and you lay down a taco card, everybody has to slap the card, and the last person to slap it has to take all those cards, put it in their deck, and they have to start it. And you
Mhm.
go around. There's also these other wild cards, like there's a narwhal and a gorilla and a groundhog, and you have to do these motions. Like for narwhal, you have to like put your hands above your head, and then you have to slap the card. And if you don't slap it, you have to take all the if you're last one, you take all the cards again. So you have to,
Gosh.
we've been playing it almost every night this week, and my son loves it, and
Is
it
is it from the same people that did Exploding
probably
Kittens? It seems
it
like it
probably
is.
is.
I don't know.
It's dangerous though, because it's like you're trying to slap as hard as quick as you can.
Oh
So
gosh.
people's like
Yeah.
it often my wife or my son be like, oh, my finger's jammed, because you're just like slamming it so quickly.
Play
I know,
better.
just be faster, but I don't know. But I usually end up slapping at the wrong time or being so slow because I'm not paying
Wait,
attention.
you just need to slap super hard, and so that makes them
Mm-hmm.
hesitate
Then they're like,
because like I don't want to put my
I
hand
don't
down
want to hurt.
first.
Yeah.
He's gonna slap it really
Yes,
hard.
that is a good strategy.
Mhm.
We also went to a new store, or at least it's new to me. It's called Half Price Bargains, and
Oh.
this place they get um, returns from Target and Amazon and Walmart, but
Hmm.
they also get whenever a Walmart truck turns over or it's damaged or something, they get that stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Like they buy it, they buy these things, not they just give
Yeah.
it. So some of the stuff could be brand new because somebody just returned it. They didn't want it, like it was the wrong thing. Some of it could just be because the box
Mm-hmm.
got damaged, so they couldn't sell it again. Or it could really be
Yeah.
this broke and they returned it. So you don't know what you're gonna get, but it's like this big
Mm-hmm.
almost warehouse looking place with shelves, and it's just boxes, like Amazon boxes, and you have to
Yeah.
either go through them and look at them, or somebody's written on there like
Hmm.
chair or table. Like there's desks, there's all this
Mm-hmm.
just weird pieces
Weird.
of things. I bought some air filters for our air conditioner. And the day
There you
we
go.
went, everything was half off of those prices. So it was already marked
Oh
down
wow.
from like $24 for the set of filters. It was marked down
Mm-hmm.
from there to like we'll say $12, and then it
Hmm.
was it was 50% off of that. So I paid $6 for something that originally cost $25 essentially. Yeah,
Oh wow, that's nice.
and she bought like a curling. It's a wavy curling iron, whatever, and it's normally like 30 something dollars. You got like for around $6. It was pretty crazy. We want to go
Nice.
back. But it was kind of overwhelming though because everything is, again, you just see cardboard and you don't know what's in
Mm-hmm.
there until you touch almost everything. Looking, because they've got vacuum cleaners, they've got coffee makers and headsets and all kinds of
Hmm.
weird things.
That's
It's
cool. That
it's interesting.
kind of reminds me. So I think we've talked about like sideshow collectibles before on here.
Yeah.
So uh, a website that has all kinds of cool statues from anything from like Marvel, DC, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, all
Yeah.
the cool stuff. Typically pretty expensive. But there is a website, I believe it's like seconds.sideshow.com.
Okay.
You can also probably do Google sideshow seconds. Um, and like what you said with like box dents, basically they get these statues, and there'll be just a giant dent on the side of it. They haven't opened it, so they haven't looked at like
Yeah. The
the
quality. Yeah.
what it's like if it's broken inside or anything like that. But they discount it like 10 to 15% off. And we recently got like a Stitch statue, a hula
Yeah. Yeah.
Stitch on that site. It was like over $50 off because there was just a dent in the box. Open it up perfectly fine. Nothing wrong
That's
with it.
crazy.
So so if you're wanting to add to your collection of cool stuff, I would suggest going to the website, kind of looking around every now and then, because they'll do just like big bulk drops of just all kinds of stuff. Yesterday there was like a giant Darth Maul. There
Hmm.
was like a Batman Begins statue, a Catwoman from Batman Returns, like all kinds of stuff, like really cool stuff that shows up on
So,
there,
so y'all just
and it's all
took a
cheaper.
took a chance and hoped that it came out okay.
Yeah, we just kind of yeah, I just kind of took a chance with like, because I was like, well, even if it's broken or whatever, I glue it together and it'd still be really
Yeah.
cool. Like,
Sure.
and I wasn't expecting it to be like completely broken. I was like, maybe there'll be like a pinky broke off or something from where it hit. But I mean, these things are packaged just so
Hmm.
well to begin with like all these
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
styrofoam pieces and stuff that like, I mean, and it wasn't that even that big of a dent on it uh, when I opened it up. So I was like, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So I would
Hmm.
recommend that if anyone wants to check that
Very
out.
cool. All right. Well, we'll get off of YouTube. Thanks everybody for watching.
Mhm.
Hope you have a great night, and we'll see you next week for I Am Star. No, I Am Disney. Bye.